Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Friday edition of Moohead Radio. I'm your host, a big and furry bovine. Joining me so far in the studio, Brian and Jake and Rick. We're waiting for Stan, who may or may not make it, depending upon.
She was in the chat, so.
Oh, well, maybe she's just waiting. I don't know if she has the link,
Well, I saw it over here in the description, so.
Yeah, I try to put it up there now so that people can jump right in. The title of today's show, and people are guessing what two things pissed me off. And Brian's already been wrong about one of them. So it's on the record. I don't want Donald Trump impeached. I want him voted out of office. I want the democratic process unimpeded, without Russians, without Hillary and her gang, without all of the bullshit. I just want it democratically determined. And then we live with what we get, right? That's kind of the way I look at it anyway. We got some things to talk about today, some of which are not the most pleasant things in the world. And we'll start with the two things that piss me off the most. The first of it is this notion that we live in a capitalistic society, and people who insist that they're capitalists who are really not capitalists. They are of a different breed. And let me explain, before I get into the whole explanation of the sports that this has to do with. If anybody who sits on this panel is a capitalist, it would be me. Thank you. I own companies, and yes, I paid 100% of my employees' health insurance. Does that not make me a capitalist? Well, obviously, by today's standard, I would not be considered a capitalist. I would be considered a socialist, because people bandy around these expressions in a way that is self-serving. Most people who say, oh, I'm a capitalist, haven't done dick in their lives, okay? They haven't risked anything. They haven't done anything. They look at it as a philosophical Ayn Rand kind of every man is an island, free market mentality. And if you've ever done things in your life, you know that there's more gray than there is black and white in life. Here's what set me off in the world of sports. First things first, the NCAA voted to allow collegiate players the rights of ownership to their likenesses within the confines of the collegiate model, whatever the fuck that means. I don't know what the collegiate model is, except that Alabama and Ohio State earn billions and billions of dollars, and the rest of us don't get dick. And we got to pay for tickets. We got to pay to watch them play. And the fact of the matter is that the collegiate model, and sitting there and acting like they've done something, we're in the middle of this whole China thing with, Taiwan and China and human rights. And before you Americans get on your fucking high horse and talk about all these things like human rights, that would be like me saying to Brian, I am giving you the right to vote in 2019. I mean, what the fuck? What the fuck? You're entitled.
Well, that's mighty white of you, Moo.
Yeah, right. Right. And that's the first thing I tweeted. When the NCAA said, well, we're going to allow the players the rights to their likeness, I said, that's mighty white of you. That's exactly what I said, because this is...
Well, but for 50 years, they have absorbed all of the money generated by these guys, their jersey sales, all of that stuff, their pictures, their video game likenesses, all that stuff has gone directly to the NCAA and to largely the major schools. Yep. The Ohio State, Alabama, Auburn, etc., Florida State, Free Shoes U.
Oh boy, that's
the other thing is this is a knee-jerk reaction to a California statute that was just passed.
yeah. I mean, knee jerk. What it is a bunch of wealthy white men who are doing exactly what the founding fathers did. You know, it's like, yeah, you know, I'm Thomas Jefferson and I'm fucking my house help. But you know something? I'm a great guy. I'm going to give you an hour off on Sunday. Instead of picking cotton, you can pray to your God. You know, this is the mentality that we're dealing with, okay?
But Mr. Movement, it's so ridiculous. Like, even if your mom cooked you a spaghetti dinner for the team, like something you think is innocent, like you lose eligibility over that.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing to me is people who are giving you something that you should have had decades ago doesn't really count as progress.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
That's the part about this whole thing is the players' unions in the NFL and mainly NBA, where these players could make money with the popularity of the sport, they've never fought to get them out of high school since the one and done rule.
Yeah,
So how much do they really care? They haven't gone to the table for the CBA and said, don't make them go to college, let them make money right away. So they don't even care either. They just pretend to.
And then to take this one step further, all right, and lest you think that the NCAA are capitalists, okay, they're not. They're, you know, what was the line from Shawshank Redemption about the sisters?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're, you know, they're not animals, you know, they have to be human first. I mean, the fact of the matter is that capitalism has nothing to do with this. And I get into this for a reason, because the sports that we talk about have nothing to do with capitalism. If you want to get rid of the socialists, get rid of the NFL and all the profit sharing motives, get rid of Major League Baseball, get rid of all of it, because none of it is capitalistic by designation and definition. All right. So if you want to start talking about capitalism, you know, then get rid of the players' unions, you know, all of that stuff.
Right?
Say what?
I said, you're right. But the spaghetti dinner I was referring to, it happened at the high school level here it was probably about 6 years ago. They went to a state championship game, and I read it in the paper, and they said that the mother of one of the players on the team did a spaghetti dinner for all the players the day before the championship. Somehow they found out and said, oh, that's illegal. You can't do that. So you have to forfeit the state championship. And they have to now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's stupid.
Yeah. Somebody should have brought garlic bread.
Well, life is stupid, if you ask me.
I mean, you can't even have your own business on the side as a player, and you still are ruled ineligible.
Now, what I'm going to say next is the worst thing that I can say.
Okay.
Right? And this comes on the heels of the NCAA and their benevolence, and Thomas Jefferson and his benevolence, and the NFL and all of their benevolence in giving a pittance to the people who made their goddamn sport and now suffer from brain encephalopathy.
Yep.
For all of these wonderful people, we now get the truth. Okay, we waited long enough, and we got the truth about Trent Williams. All right. Let me explain to you the disgust that I have for Daniel Snyder and how I wish him dead. And I'm not understating this. I want him to die.
Wow.
He is not fit for human life.
Wow.
This whole thing with Trent Williams may have been partially contractual. It may have been partially any number of things. But what really threw it over the edge was this question of whether he was healthy enough or not to play. And how his doctors differed from the Redskins medical staff. And they wanted him to play through, and he did what his doctors told him to do. And he did not come out in the days, weeks that he held out. It was the Redskins and Daniel Snyder who held on to him until the last second so that he wouldn't be moved, just to be vindictive, turning down offer after offer by the Cleveland Browns. And that's not why I'm upset about this, folks. Now he has to report, right? So he reports to the Redskins and he has a press conference and he says, I'll talk about it now. I wasn't going to talk about it then, but I was diagnosed with dermafibrosarcoma protuberans. That's a big, fancy way of saying cancer on my head.
Preach.
Now, first of all, we ask ourselves, how did this come to pass? He reported the growth on his head 6 years ago. And I'm trying not to get angry about this. 6 years ago. And they told him nothing to worry about. It's benign, nothing to worry about. And for the last 6 years, Trent Williams has watched this thing grow on his head until it became a nodule, a bump of sizable proportions on his head. All right? He goes to his doctors and they say, what you got there, my friend, is cancer. All right? Don't take my word for this, because I'm one who believes in at least reading about things before I talk about them. DFSP, that's dermatofibrosarcoma protuberans, we'll just call it DFSP, okay? It's a rare type of cancer. It's a 1 in a million kind of thing, folks. A soft tissue sarcoma that develops in the deep layers of the skin. It is described as having tentacles that can grow into surrounding fat, muscle, and even bone. It only spreads to other parts of the body in about 5% of cases. It starts as a small, firm patch of skin, and then it can be purplish, reddish, or flesh-colored. The tumor grows very slowly over years and can become a raised nodule. It affects people between the ages of 20. There are about 1,000 cases diagnosed in the United States each year. The tumors affect black patients about twice as much as white patients. Now, I wanted to find out, what is the real warning of this? I mean, is it deadly? And the answer is no. 98% cure when Mohs surgery, which is a type of surgery that I'm exceedingly familiar with because people who have skin cancer here in Florida from the intensity of the sun rays, people who don't use sunscreen here are wackazoid. And they end up coming from Midwest states like Ohio. And they move to Florida and they end up with skin cancer. Mohs surgery treats layer by layer the cancer, removes it layer by layer. And the reason they do that is they have to fall within certain margins around the area and a certain depth where they're absolutely certain that none of the cancer remains. That is the process and the procedure that Trent Williams had done. It was a Mohs treatment, but it took some significant amount of time because his had grown to a nodule. 98% success. So you're saying, what's the big deal, Mr. Moohead, besides the 2%? The answer is that's if it's treated quickly and diagnosed properly. The fact of the matter is, a poor prognosis is associated with metastasis, which means it's spreading through the body, which occurs when it is not diagnosed in a certain period of time. So what we wind up with is the Redskins having taken a position that we're going to stand by what we said, that this is nothing, and it turns out to be cancer.
Wow.
Now, and they were fining him $579,000 per week. And if they would have just compensated him for the surgery, it would have, seeing as how they were making all this money off of him not playing because he had cancer, then I realized that we're not talking about capitalists or socialists. We're talking about fucking animals, pigs, people who don't deserve to live. How can you do this to somebody? I don't expect people to do what I did and pay 100% of people's health care. I don't expect that. I didn't have a problem with Obamacare. I do have a problem with insurance, the way it's being run by accountants today in general. But I understand employers having all kinds of grief in trying to find coverage that even does anything for themselves and their employers. It's costly, and it's becoming less and less, let's just say, it doesn't pay like it used to.
Yeah.
But here we have a case of an organization denying a potentially deadly situation and taking a guy to the woodshed by fining him every goddamn week that he doesn't play when he's got cancer. And I don't know what Daniel Snyder is, who he voted for, what his deal is. I don't want to hear about fucking China. I don't want to hear about fucking Taiwan and what great guys Taiwan are. Taiwan aren't great guys, okay? This is you want to hear what they do in Taiwan? They bring over Filipino and Indonesian workers. And here, just earlier this month, 6 Filipinos and Indonesian fishermen were killed when a bridge collapsed. 12 were injured. 19 became homeless after the accident, losing their passports and savings as they lived on board of their boats. They ended up sleeping in cardboard boxes, according to a report from Taiwan's state-owned Central News Agency. But you know what the report from their Central News Agency said? Hey, they're still receiving 3 meals a day. Think of it the next time you hear, oh, those athletes are making millions. Nobody deserves to die of cancer because an organization hires doctors who are fake doctors, as Donald Trump would call them, and didn't investigate what the real depth of the problem was. Don't tell me about China, don't tell me about Taiwan, and don't tell me about the United States of America.
Mr. Muad, didn't that happen at the NBA level? Look at Kawhi Leonard. Remember the beef he was having with the organization of San Antonio? Their team doctors were saying, you're good, go back in. He's like, no, dude, I can't. They're like, no, you're good, go back in. And then he had to hire his own doctors that are like, wait a minute, dude, you can't be playing on that.
And, and what he said today, I don't know if you saw what Kawhi said. He said the reason he is so involved in his post-game ritual is that he has a young son. And by the time his young son is ready to play basketball, he wants to be able to play with him. He's been one of the highest utilization people, along with LeBron James, in the league. The fact of the matter is that he cares about his health, and the people who he works for do not care about his health. And he works his ass off, man.
Kevin Durant too. Remember they told him it was a calf issue, and you could clearly see he's grabbing his Achilles. They're like, nah, dude, that's just your calf. It's just aggravating your lower muscle, which they knew he tore the motherfucker.
Yeah. Don't tell me. So don't tell me about the United States of America. China. The big thing about China that came up in all this was the way that they were treating Muslim citizens. Don't talk to me about the United States and America and how we treat Muslim populations. Don't, please.
Mr. Moore, it's the same thing with the clothes and the shoes you're wearing. A lot of them that are made in China in these sweatshops where they pay these guys 10 cents a day and work them 14-hour shifts.
And in China, those very same factories have catch nets hanging off of the roof so that the workers can't commit fucking suicide by jumping off the roof.
Yeah, and again, the bottom line there is that nobody is saying that China is a bastion of human rights, but don't think that our country is, please. There are people getting shot, innocent, unarmed people by police officers, just being gunned down. There is not human rights in this country, believe me.
There was a little girl in Chicago that got shot trick or treating.
I
She
mean,
was in a little fucking bee costume, and there was a shootout between two gangs, and she got hit by one of the stray bullets.
But remember, Smuad, you discussed this in the boxing forum too, and in the MMA forum. You said a lot of times they just throw these guys in there, and then they just, if somebody dies, oh well, and that a lot of these guys come up from poor conditions or from conditions of poverty. So unfortunately, that they have to go into that sport because it's not like they're the big wigs where they're sitting on all the money,
Well, and PBC, which is a professional boxing group that puts on shows in Showtime, was showing some of their fights, and a guy named Lubin, the Hammer Lubin, who's the guy who was supposed to win, was fighting a Mexican fighter. The Mexican fighter beat him, outlanded him literally almost 2-1, backed him up the entire fight. They gave the goddamn fight to Lubin, and afterwards, the Mexican fighter comes out and he says, I guess I'm just. He goes, I used to think that I had a chance to win a championship. He goes, but I realized I'm just PBC's punching bag. And that's really what it comes down to. He's just losing brain cells trying to achieve a goal that they're not even going to let him achieve. So, again, and I get it, D-Bag, and I appreciate, because I think a lot of people will be bored with the first 23 minutes of this program. But you know something? I'm not always here to entertain. I like to think that I'm here to shed some light on some things, too. And that this whole cow thing, which is all well and good, and it's nice to be funny and it's nice to be entertaining, there are some things that transcend that. And there's just good, simple human decency. And when I see it totally lacking, it really is, it's hurtful to me. And the thing that bothers me is that they painted Trent Williams as a guy who was defiant. Okay? And the fact is, he had cancer, and he didn't bring that before the cameras prior because he just wanted to be traded. He just wanted to get out of the environment, knowing in his heart that the people he worked for weren't taking his health seriously. He wanted to go to another organization. So he didn't try to put Daniel Snyder's feet to the fire by winning a war of words in the press, but so push comes to shove, and now we find out the truth of the story,
That stuff said he had cancer, though.
Huh?
I would like...
Go ahead, Jake.
I am part of another group of, small sports fans. And there's one kid in particular who's a big Redskins fan. And he was actually angry at Trent Williams and ripped the jersey in half for not being honest with the Redskins about his cancer. He was that mad about it. Yeah, and I was like, you really don't understand why he wants out of there at this point.
Or the fact that the Redskins
tell the doctor to help out.
The Redskins should have known he had cancer. They have team doctors. I mean, what kind of a stupidity is that?
But those team doctors are just like WWE doctors. It's just nothing different.
Yeah.
You put both those guys, same thing.
Yeah. All right, now we can get on with this. If you're wondering, Demarius Randall's not going to play. Daniel Ukulele, he's gone on injured reserve. And Eric Murray is getting knee surgery. And I'm sure that he did a meniscus, and so that's why he's gone. By the way, if you don't know, I called it right. I swear to God, I told you that I would bet money on the fact that Rashard Higgins had an MCL sprain. Do you remember when I talked about this? And when the Browns refused to say what the injury was? Well, fuck Freddie Kitchens, fuck the organization, fuck all of these people, fuck Haslam. The fact of the matter is, you want to hide what's going on. People don't miss 4 to 6 weeks for anything in the knee that is not operable. I mean, you can see that Eric Murray is getting, and he'll be 6 to 8 weeks, by the way, Eric Murray, after he gets a meniscectomy. All right, because this I've had done, so I know what the situation is. That's why he underwent knee surgery. But for an MCL sprain, you can't get surgery. It's really a rest kind of thing. That's why when I knew that he was working out and running in a straight line only, that they were protecting his medial collateral ligament. Because if it was his, it wouldn't be his LCL, because his LCL, his lateral collateral ligament, man, the only way that gets wrenched out is in a fucking car accident, man. The MCL is the one that goes, and that gets sprained, and it's usually 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the severity of the injury. Just so that you know that if you'd have been listening here weeks ago, you'd have known the extent of the injury. Freddie Kitchens can argue about when he was ready to play or when he wasn't ready to play, but the bottom line is they couldn't even tell us the truth about what the fucking injury was. And shame on you, Cleveland.com, you sluts that you are. Shame on you for not reporting this, because the questions that are worth asking, you're worried about what Tony Grossi is asking regarding something where he was thoroughly inaccurate. And let me make that easy for the record, because Tony Grossi is not a human being either. He's a pig. And the fact is, the Browns got the ball back. Why they ran that last play, I have no idea whatsoever. The play calling during that entire 2-minute drill was ridiculous. And the fact of the matter is that why, and they said, well, how come there wasn't any urgency? And the reason is Baker didn't want to turn the fucking ball over to give them another opportunity to score. We're down 2 scores by that time. And if we come out in the second half, in the first possession, we could be within a touchdown. You fuck up there and you got a major problem. That's too hard for Tony Grossi to understand, because he's a vegetable, okay? He's an idiot. And he is only interested in screaming fire in a crowded theater. That's all he's interested in. So we'll get over that as well.
Hey, Mr. Mouet, can you switch to camera review so it'll show all of us?
Thank you. I'm sorry. That's my bad.
Yeah.
That's my bad. Here you go. Sorry about that. Thank you for reminding me. I was all zoomed in on Jake.
Yeah, cool.
And I'm really, hi Toby, how you doing?
Mr. Mouet, can I ask you a question? It's sort of the same topic. Do you see Colin Kaepernick coming back, or you think he got the blackball?
He got, well, I hate to use that expression because
I would be accused of being, him. He got blackballed.
Yeah, actually, he was tarred and feathered. I mean, and he was an instigator too, like Trent Williams. I mean,
I wish they'd give him a fucking Viking funeral.
You would, but you see, free speech isn't part of your capitalistic ethic. You see,
ain't this the pot calling the kettle black? Bullshit, dude. Bullshit. Don't talk to me about fucking not giving anybody free speech.
Man, Brian, you just got
How many times do you fucking shut people down? How many? You spew off all this Trump bullshit, and then, I say something, and you fucking have a heart attack on the goddamn show. Fuck off.
I'm having a heart attack.
Oh, well, this isn't a political show. Well, then why do you bring up goddamn Trump? Either talk sports or talk Trump.
But it's combined today because there is a greater point. I wanted Baker to take a knee at the end of the first half. Kaepernick did take a knee, and look what happened to him. I mean, come on. Boy, if you can't laugh about this, at least somebody's laughing at this. Thank you, Stephen. I thought it was clever too.
Hey, Mr. Ruhead, though, I'm not I don't know. I guess you would say it was free speech because he nailed. Some people said, well, if you're on the workforce, you can't really do that if you're in a normal job setting, which that is true.
Go work for Lowe's or Home Depot and then take a knee in the middle of your fucking shift and see what happens to you.
I think it was before the game began.
Yeah, because it's the national anthem, and that's what other people, the critics argue. They say, well, wait a minute, the clock doesn't start till the game starts, right? So technically,
he still gets a game check.
And look,
still on the clock.
Jamie Collins laid down for 16 games for the Browns, and nobody had a problem when he did it on the field during the games. I mean, I don't know.
Now he's playing like a goddamn all-star for the fucking Patriots.
Well, I wouldn't say he's playing for like an all-star, but he has a role there. And
compared to the last 2 years with the Browns.
He was on a lazy boy. Stephen Carlson, the new tight end for the Cleveland Browns. Oh, that's just really groovy. he's going to have an opportunity to play because Pharaoh Brown basically got lost in Egypt. He's done. So the Browns are going to have 3 active tight ends, which sounds more like a porn movie than it does a football team.
3 practice squad guys too. Not even worth playing.
I'm just reading over,
Hey, do you think some of these moves that Dorsey's done has been to create create roster spots for Hunt and who is that offensive lineman from?
Forbes, Drew Forbes.
Yeah,
probably, and it's a shame that it's Jannard Avery. And the thing that bothered me about it was just that Wilkes was talking this guy up so much that it's hard for me to understand how everybody can be on the wrong page. It's just like Keystone Cop shit. And looking at what Freddie had to say yesterday, there really wasn't a whole hell of a lot. Basically, they asked him where Drew Forbes fits best on the Browns. He said, well, right now he's running scout team stuff. So that ought to tell you, what that's all about. On if the Browns' preparation has been inconsistent, I definitely think there are better weeks than others. Well, I really, I'm more interested on game day, you know what I mean? And I haven't seen any kind of consistent execution. On if Wyatt Teller has earned more playing time, and he refused to answer that because he doesn't want to divulge which superstar he's going to send out on the field in his offensive line.
Mr. Moorhead, I just wanted to end off by saying this. Back to the Kaepernick thing, he did get a settlement for $60 million. A buddy of mine just told me that the NFL did pay him, compensated him.
Yeah, I mean, look.
Plus, then he got a huge contract with Nike, so he's fine for money.
Yeah, but the thing is, I mean, he can't do what he wants to do professionally, and I think isn't that the argument that women make about wanting to be president of the United States or wanting to be taken seriously, wanting to be presidents of or CEOs of major corporations? Is that that they have the ability but they're not getting the opportunity? And I think that is more the issue than dollars and cents in all of this. It's just another example of that they're not a capitalistic organization. The NFL are a group of, 32 or whatever it is, white men who lord over people, and basically they do truly have a plantation mentality.
Except for the Jacksonville guy, he's not white.
Oh, you bring up what's his name? Ahmed Khan or whatever his name is. Yeah.
But Mr. Moorhead, though, why is it that the NFL is so different than the NBA? Like the NBA, the players can get pretty much – the owner really doesn't own the team in the NBA. But it's like a players' league. Because
of the collective bargaining agreements.
Yeah. I mean, it is different sport, different situation. But I'll say this.
The players have 82 paychecks in the NBA. The NFL guys have 16.
Yeah. To be even-handed about this, folks, I mean – I am just as disgusted when Josh Gordon signs with the Seahawks and the Seahawks say, oh, we're getting this great guy. And it bothers me equally when J.R. Smith, unties people's shoes in the middle of the lane and going through all that horse shit and kept getting free agent contracts and would not even pay attention and know whether there was timeouts in a game. I think what an employee owes his employer is full attention, hard work, full effort. Okay? And we're not getting that from the Cleveland Browns players, to be sure. I think Deathwish Kitchens has something to do with the fact that he's not bringing out whatever teamwork that there is. And realistically, look at it this way, folks. If you're so busy that you're still in a press conference on Thursday, now that Higgins is fully practicing and all, and he's back to play, you're still arguing the point that 2 weeks ago, go ahead and ask Higgins. Go ahead, Freddie said, and ask him. I bet he'd change his story today. You're trying to win a battle, and it's the war that is more important than the battle. The fact that Rashard Higgins was not gotten rid of tells me that Dorsey doesn't want to get rid of Rashard Higgins. And that ought to be a message to Deathwish. It's like, if you want to talk another guy off the roster, my man, you're the one who's going next, my friend. Deathwish is going next. And now we get on Cleveland.com this headline: it's time the Browns promote and play Rashard Higgins. Oh, really? You think you're a little late on this? I mean, that's like showing up to the party after they've removed the keg. What's the fucking point? What's the fucking point? I mean, but when our coach is it's more important to him to win an argument with a player than it is to win football games, and to say that Callaway gives him a better chance to win than Higgins, we've got a real problem on our hands. And that problem isn't going away. And it's
Clippers.
Yeah, and it's going to follow us right into Denver as well. The team is not in a good frame of mind. Terry Pluto wringing his hands and saying, what happens if the Browns lose in Denver? Can that actually happen? The thing that makes Terry Pluto incredible is even when he has a free hand to write,
there's still one more available.
the guy, I mean, how could you be a Browns fan and ask if something can happen? After Red Right 88, after Biner's fumble, after the drive, after the helmet of Dwayne Rudd, after 56-yard closing second field goals, after Bottlegate, why would you ask that question? Can that happen? You stupid fuck, of course it could happen.
Preach.
And I didn't even read the article. That was his headline, and I stopped, and I'm not going to give him any more time on the air, except to answer his silly question. Just like I answered Tony Grossi's silly question. Oh, Jesus Christ. I had to write on the goddamn Cleveland.com site, because they were, pimping that stupid Grossi thing. And I said, you're the people who did DSN, Digital Sports Network. You're the one who had Greg Kozarek on the air screaming fire in a crowded theater. You're the people who had a numerologist on the air on a sports channel. What do you know about entertainment? What do you know about journalism? What do you know about anything? Don't tell me my business. I hired guys like this, and if we're talking about people like Aaron Goldhammer, or, guys who are career, oh my God, I'm stuck in Cleveland people. If you can't get out of a market, that means you're not good enough, Tony. And if you got to ask questions just to piss Baker Mayfield off to get your name in the national press, fuck you. You're not good enough to get out of Cleveland. I hired and fired people just like you. And you know something? I'm not a good air talent. I know good air talents when I see them. And, it's few and far between. The guy who, I'll tell you, Joe Tate was a great play-by-play guy, okay? All right, Fred McLeod was not a great play-by-play guy. God rest his soul. He was a wonderful man from what I've heard. He was not a great play-by-play guy. Michael Regai is a better play-by-play guy than Fred McLeod. Okay? I'm just telling you from a professional perspective. This was my business. This is what I know. There are, Hamilton, the Indians, radio guy is magnificent. I mean, what? Hammy is outstanding. That's a great play-by-play guy. Matt Underwood is a lousy play-by-play guy. Rick Manning has gotten better through the years, but is not a great color guy. And Austin Carr, well, he spawned a drinking game. All right?
And several illegitimate children.
But do you think anybody, who was the woman who did our Allie? What was Allie's last name? I'm sorry, she's in LA now with LeBron. The one who, Allie Clifton. Thank you, Allie Clifton. Thank you, UT graduate, girls basketball player. I mean, she's good enough. She got a little help from LeBron, and she's really doing a good job in LA. And she really improved in her time in Cleveland, And it's nice to see.
How about the other guy, David Windhorst?
Huh?
How about the other guy, David Windhorst, as well?
Brian Windhorst.
LeBron gave him a career.
You know how good you have to be
I'm
at
sorry.
what you do to overcome the lack of visuals that man has? I mean, let me tell you, I have the same problem as Brian Windhorst, except Brian Windhorst has a better excuse than I do because he actually suffers from a medical condition that a lot of people don't realize. The weight that he gained has a lot to do with a medical condition that he has, which is unfair that they really ripped on him for that. But, he's just good at his job. And I was so thrilled to see him move up in the world because that's what broadcast is all about, is moving up to a better market. Ask anybody. That's what the deal is. Everybody wants to be where Howard Stern got. God, I mean, if you could be syndicated, it's an awesome thing. If you're in New York City, it's a great thing. If you're in Los Angeles, it's a great thing. If you're in Chicago, it's a great thing. If you're in Atlanta, it's a great thing, If you're in Cleveland and you're stuck in Cleveland, well, then you hold on to your job. Good for you. But don't have aspirations that you're going to rip on Baker Mayfield in a press conference and that's going to somehow get you out of Cleveland because Tony Grossi, you're not talented. You ask stupid questions and you are an idiot. And Aaron Goldhammer, you're an idiot too. You're just a guy who bounces from station to station. And, when one fires you, you go to another one, It goes on. Jack Reynolds was the guy from Cleveland. What's his son's name? He's another guy in Cleveland who's bounced from place to place to place. It's like who's the big kahuna? What's that guy's name in Cleveland? He's worked, the big sports kahuna, BSK. I don't remember his name, but he's worked for every station in town. If he was good, he'd be getting a job in another market. So stop it.
Kendall Lewis.
Kendall Lewis, thank you. And I'm sure Kendall's a good guy. And Kendall doesn't sit there and do half-ass things to try to get himself moved into a market that he's not qualified to get into. But, Cleveland's a retread broadcast market. People stay there forever. It's kind of like the black hole in space. Know what people hear? Know what people hear when they come to Cleveland? They're young when they come to Cleveland, and all they hear is this voice of Bruce Drennan saying, "Get me out of here. For God's sakes, get me out of here." Poor Bruce has been in Cleveland. I mean, it's like a fucking Outer Limits, man. These people, like people trapped in a Gothic mansion, and they can't get out.
Yeah.
Well, I have
Tony
some advice.
Rizzo, same thing with him.
Yeah, well, that's the guy who was Jack Reynolds' son, Rizzo. Thank you.
Tony.
Yeah, I mean, you know what I tell people? Get better. Get better at your craft. Develop a personality. Just don't yell and scream. Develop a personality. And don't say you're a cow. That's not a personality. I never said I was a broadcast talent. That's not what I did. I hired people who were really talented people. And it almost embarrasses me. The reason I do what I do here is because I'm old and I'm bored. And I'm a Cleveland sports fan. And I love Northeast Ohio sports. And every so often, I'm happy when I see something happen. When I see the Cavaliers win the championship trophy. I'm thrilled with it. But
yeah, in Cleveland, the same thing happened. Remember, they said, "Don't you think it's kind of depressing that Cleveland only won one championship with LeBron?" I'm like, well, at least you got something.
Yeah, and let me tell you something else. If I was really any good at what I do, I'd have a lot more than 372 subscribers and a lot more than like 1,000 to 1,500 views on post-game shows. I'd be in the tens of thousands if I was decent at what I do. So, this is not...
You know what's funny? You know what's funny, Moo? Jay Crawford actually talked about this, and he actually wanted to come back and end up in Cleveland. He went from ESPN down to Channel 3 at Cleveland.
Yeah, it's on WKYC now.
Who is this?
Jay Crawford.
Jay Crawford.
He
The
was
one
on
with the two-colored eyes.
or something.
Yeah.
He was on.
Used to have a show on
Cold
Peter.
Pizza and the original First Take and...
Yeah, I mean, look, if you want to settle down in Cleveland, believe me, I lived in Northeast Ohio, I mean, that's your cup of tea, that's your cup of tea. But, these guys have aspirations that they think they're going to be able to make a name for themselves just by doing these things and starting shit with people. What do you want to start shit with Baker Mayfield for? All that's been proven about Baker Mayfield is that he could play the offensive scheme last year, and he's not good at this one. That's all that has been proven. This is not a referendum on his skill level and his future in the league. Nobody plays this scheme well.
They punch back if you piss them off.
They jump, and they jump off sides. They don't line up right. Nobody gets this offense, so why point at the one guy who is your way out of this thing? That would be like people looking at Moses and saying, God, Moses, I hate that outfit you're wearing. I'm embarrassed to be seen with you. It's like, shut the fuck up. I'm taking you to the promised land.
Preach.
I don't know. We always have something to complain about. We blame the quarterback, I don't know.
One thing to look at, Mr. Moohead, at least the Broncos aren't starting Joe Flacco, so that gives y'all sort of an advantage there going into Sunday.
If Flacco has a neck, he has a cervical herniation. I have a thoracic herniation. They're saying 4 to 6 weeks. Good luck. Good luck, depending on what cervical vertebra that's in. That could be very difficult for Flacco. I would say that his season is done. Brandon,
he did say
they put him on IR. He's done for the year.
Well, regardless, even if he's still in the league, he still plays.
That makes sense. I mean, because you're not going to sit there and have a neck herniation and go out and play football. I think that it's time for him to retire and find out what he wants to do next in life.
So, Mr. Moohead, you have a knee injury. What is Patrick Mahomes' injury? Because now they're saying he may come back this week.
What happened to Yeah, what happened with the dislocation, there's two types of dislocations, one that would tear ligaments and one that wouldn't. He was fortunate, his knee popped back in without tearing the ligaments that surround it. All right, so that's the difference. And if you want to find out the worst example, and now, again, I have to pull up names. Livingston, the former Cleveland Cavalier, who ended up going with the Warriors. He suffered one of the worst, if not the worst, knee dislocation, and he had what was called the triad. That means that all three, MCL, LCL, ACL, torn out, and the dislocated knee. It's amazing that guy came back to play basketball at the NBA level. And that's why
he's playing.
I mean, God bless him. He retired. He's good. He's whole, and he's got championships. That is, a wonderful thing. So sometimes you're lucky it pops back into place. Sometimes you're not so lucky and it does not. It is disorienting when panelists talk all at once, and I have a feeling that there is some delay issue involved in this. And my apologies if we are stepping on one another. We don't usually have this issue, but there could be some delay in this. And
Mac brought up a good point. He said, "What about Teddy Bridgewater coming back from his injury?"
Yep.
There's a lot.
And he's getting paid next year. He's going to get paid next year.
Yeah, I really think that guys who work their way back from these really difficult, injuries deserve commendation. And, it's...
What's Alex Smith's injury?
He broke both bones in his leg.
Yeah, I mean, this is...
Same as Tim Crumry and Joe Theismann.
So he won't be able to come back.
Both leg bones just above the ankle.
Okay, so he's not coming back.
You don't know. And I mean, it's just like the injury that I currently have. I can't play tennis, and I may never be able to play tennis again because this affects my breathing. One of the reasons I don't want to get too angry on the air is because the thoracic herniations that I have, what it does is it goes around, you can't see, but it goes around from my back all the way around circumferentially to my chest, right to the area where the diaphragm is. And I tend to start hyperventilating and I get lightheaded. So I can't do athletic things. So you don't know when the next thing is your last thing. You don't know. You give these athletes credit, because
how is your leg doing? I wanted to get an update on that, because I know you had an injury. How's that going?
Oh, my knee replacement was perfect, and I was playing high level tennis until I got hurt on the tennis court with the herniation in the T3 and T4 thoracic vertebrae. So I just whacked the ball too hard. I thought I was 25 again, and I went after a ball too hard. And just from the recoiling, I'm a strong guy, and I hit the ball real hard. I tried to hit this one really hard, and I herniated the disc in my thoracic spine, which is a rare thing. It doesn't happen very often because the thoracic spine is so tight to your spinal cord. But unfortunately,
like a Frank injury almost, but in the back.
And it's and for those people who are wondering about Cam Newton, he has the dreaded Liz Frank, and he's getting advice from Cam Newton. He's getting advice from his doctors, and the answer is you have to get surgery on that.
He's got Frank, Cam Newton.
He's got a Liz Frank injury.
Oh God, that sucks.
So he's done. He's not going to be able to play on that. You got to get that surgically repaired. So the thing is with this, you can't really surgically repair the thoracic spine. So I just have to heal to whatever degree I heal, and then I have to amend my activities. This is what makes people retire from athletics, is that, you can be lucky or you can be unlucky.
That's kind of like what Andrew Luck, when he retired from his leg injury. Sometimes you just get so tired of getting injured all the time. You're just like, fuck it,
Yeah, I mean, that's, I think what it comes down to is sometimes your body tells you when it's time, That's kind of the way I look at it. So, Kobe Altman was re-signed by the Cavaliers to a long-term contract, and, he's done a nice job. I guess the final thing I wanted to say about Deathwish Kitchens before we make our predictions, and you notice I didn't even talk about the analytics of this game, because when you're dealing with a quarterback who's never started a game in the NFL, you don't really know what to say. Yeah. But let me tell you something about Deathwish Kitchens. If Beeline can put out two 19-year-olds and a 20-year-old, along with Tristan Thompson and Kevin Love, right? And Jetty Osman, who is a little bit better than Marie Osman, and put them all out on the floor together and be 2-2 at this point, having beaten both the Bulls and the Pacers. And I know you're going to say, well, the Pacers don't have Oladipo, and tonight they don't have Miles Turner, but we're going to play them in Indiana, and winning on the road is a completely different story. But the Chicago Bulls do have Wendell Carter, and they do have Zach LaVine. And if you were not fortunate enough to watch that basketball game, the Cavaliers hung in there like grim death in the fourth quarter when that lead got sliced down to 2 points on several occasions. And our young kids made some plays. Darius Garland made a couple of swift moves to the basket, laid the ball in. Colin Sexton, on a ball that was a kind of a 50-50 ball, jumped in front and went into a jump shot and made that. There were some big plays. Tristan Thompson played like God or God Almighty, blocking shots and rebounding, playing selfless basketball, doing what he does well, and he's added some nice wrinkles and getting the ball off a little bit faster in the lane and making quick moves from the perimeter from 15 feet out to get into his right-handed and left-handed hook shots. If Beeline can win with what is totally inexperienced people / veterans, why can't Deathwish Kitchens win and have players who show the discipline that the 19 and 20-year-olds do for the Cavaliers, with talent like OBJ and Baker Mayfield and Jarvis Landry and Nick Chubb? There is no excuse to be unprepared. Yeah. Beeline has never coached an NBA game in his life, and he's 68 years old, folks. So I don't want to hear first-time head coach shit either. There are no excuses. When you have talent, you have to win. Beeline wasn't hired to win. He was hired to teach. Okay? That's what he was hired to do. And the Cavaliers are more entertaining than the Browns right now. I don't expect that to continue, because eventually these young men are going to find out that 82 games is a lot longer than a college season. And by the time you get 30 games into the season, they're going to...
Yeah, you're already mathematically. Well, you're actually technically out, even though mathematically there's still a lot of games. But you already know that train's derailing. So you're just like, fuck it.
That's right. But I'm watching the Cavaliers because I'm having fun watching people who believe they can win and who are putting out the effort to win. There's no excuse for the Cleveland Browns. None.
Mr. Moohead, your Cavaliers are 2-2, and I've watched some highlights that actually are pretty entertaining to watch.
Yeah, they have a few guys, and I think Kevin Porter is a young player who, he's not where he's going to be. He's 19 years old. He's got no college experience to speak of. And Darius Garland was out of the game for almost a year, and he's not in game shape, and he's not really rounded into form. But you see glimpses of the athleticism of what these guys can do. KP made a play where he blocked a shot, brought it down the other end, blew by his guy, and slam dunked the ball. And you sit there and you watch this and you say, maybe if these guys have work ethic and they keep getting better, which is the real question with all of these young kids getting into the NBA, if they continue to improve, and it's wonderful watching Tristan Thompson and Kevin Love working with these young players and being selfless. Watching Kevin Love pass the ball, rebound the ball. I mean, Kevin Love getting 20 rebounds and only 15 points, but it doesn't matter because he's doing what he's supposed to. He's getting the ball in the hands of the right person. There's something great about people working together. If John Beeline can get people to work together who are 19 and 20 years old, why can't Freddie Kitchens get players on the Cleveland Browns to work together?
Mr. Moohead, before you...
I actually think... Sorry, Stephen.
Oh, go ahead, Jake.
I actually think that this is Beeline's comfortable situation because he coached college. So these younger guys might be in more of a college mindset to listen to him. This might be the best situation to coach in the NBA, dealing with rookies or second-year players.
Well, it might be for the first 20 games, but you're going to see the frustration wear thin. What were you going to say, Stephen?
I was going to say before you end the show, is there any way we could do a quick score prediction for the Broncos?
That's what we're going to do. Yeah, we're going to do that now. And let's start it up the way we started up. We're going to go I almost hate to do this. I'm not even going to ask. We're going to ask Get Christy Love. Who wins? You don't even know who the Browns are playing. They're playing the Denver Broncos. Who wins, Browns or Broncos? What's your score?
Browns are going to win 24-18.
All right, and I don't know how they're going to score 18, but hey, you're saying a 6-point spread. That works for me. All right, Steven, what do you think?
Okay, I'm going with Browns 27, Denver 10, because I think with that new rookie quarterback, the Browns will be able to take advantage of that. So I got the Browns.
All right, Rick?
Browns 17, Broncos 13. They win in spite of Kitchens, not because of them.
All right. Jake?
2014 Browns, I don't see them dominating like they should.
Okay.
All right. And Brian?
Well, I'm going to pick against them to give the Browns the best possible chance. So Broncos 13, Browns 12.
Wow.
Yeah. My belief is that the Browns will win 24. I'm going to say 24-13. My feeling is this, folks. This is going to be a lot like what we ran into with the Jets. They don't have a quarterback on the field, and we should be able to win the game. It's not an easy place to play. Yes, the air is thin, but we have enough depth that we should be able to cover that, assuming that Freddie doesn't play the guys 100% of the snaps, which we can't be so sure of. Other than that, I'd say, 24-13, and I think that we get through this and we move on. But I'm not saying it's impossible for the Browns to lose this football game, because if you turn the ball over and you give them gifts, they can hand the ball off and run it into the end zone. What you need to do is you need to keep the Scottish hammer out there punting them deep, and you got to force an inexperienced quarterback to go 80 yards, 75, 80 yards, and prove that he can do it and move the chains and move the team. And you got to put it on him. You got to stop the running game that they have, and they've got a couple of running backs who are worthwhile running backs, and you got to block Von Miller. You can't, and you've got to throw them around like rag dolls to get Nick Chubb running, and you dominate the time of possession, and you force this young quarterback into having to throw the football, and you can get turnovers. The reason we might score more than 24 is because of the possibility of turnovers in short field. There is that possibility. So I hope that's the case anyway. So that's it for the program. I'm sorry I took up so much time with the other early on, but it's like I say, that sometimes it's just there are things that don't escape my notice, and it's disappointing in a game where millions and millions of dollars are being made by owners, by players, and to ignore something like cancer and to try to argue your way out of something like that. This is non-negotiable in my mind. I'll be back again halftime and postgame. And it will certainly be an interesting experience watching how Deathwish brings his troops into Denver.
Hey, Mr. Moohead, quick, before you kick us out, do the Ravens beat the Patriots and end the streak, or do Patriots continue?
The Ravens will win.
Oh, okay.
They're the perfect team to defeat New England. We saw that New England couldn't stop the run against Chubb. The fact is, that is what the Ravens do best, and if they can just get those first downs to Andrews, their tight ends, and utilize their running game and hold on to that ball, that limits what Brady can do, and Brady isn't the same Brady that he was 10, 12 years ago. So that is the blueprint that the Browns showed the league if you just don't turn the ball over 3 times in a row. And give up a recovery that goes into the end zone the other way. And if the Ravens play a tight-knit game to their principles of running the clock, I think they're going to beat New England. I really do. And I don't think New England's good enough to go undefeated during the course of the year anyway. So, again.
Brady's quarterback passing rating is a 46.
Yeah. My feeling on this is simple. We're not talking about the division title. We're talking about trying to get back on track. And if there's any chance, it's getting in through a wild card scenario. It's not getting in from winning the division. I don't think anybody believes that anymore.
I think it's a wild card, 1 or 2 wild card spots.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you at halftime on Sunday. Until then, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.
Moo.